We never know. We never know when the recordings restart. Hi there. How are you? If you're watching live or a replay of this, let me know in the comments. I love hearing from you all. This is I've been making videos for years, and it's such a weird medium because I can't really converse with you unless you put something in the comments. So it's like I'm just staring at a computer screen, um, speaking into the void. So anyway, I wanted to uh, add something to the conversation or to sort of the consciousness right now about what you might be feeling or experiencing, what I'm certainly seeing in my communities. Hi. Oh, hi. Thank you for saying hi. Hello. What I'm seeing in my communities. And one thing that I want to acknowledge is that we are all feeling a wound of the system we're in, a wound that's connected deeply to all of us because we're born into the system, or we live in the system, or we're um, in some way controlled by the system, or whatever. We're in the system, okay? No matter how much love and light you have, or how much you have ascended into your own spiritual awakening or journey, we still do live in a system. Our human bodies are in it. Let me know where you're coming from in the comments. I know I have a lot of new people, a lot of new followers and friends, so let me know where you are, what's going on there. And so when we heard the guilty, guilty, guilty yesterday in this trial, all sorts of emotions came out. And it's reminded me of the different journeys we've taken with different with different events around brutality and racism and attempted justice being served and all these things. And there's a range of things we feel. We feel sadness, we feel happiness, we feel hope, we feel humiliation, we feel embarrassment, we feel a whole bunch of things, right? And there's this one feeling that we don't often name, and I think it's because it's counterintuitive to like what this guilty, guilty, guilty verdict represents. And so I wanted to name that today. And I wanted to, hopefully this will be helpful, because I know just in talking with people in the Black Mentor program for white people who are ready, which is a program I do with people who are just bringing anti-racism into the flow of their life in a way that makes sense for them. It's something that has needed to be named in the last 24 hours quite a few times, and it's something that I'm also feeling. And so before I go there, I want to tell you a story to illustrate what it is that I'm talking about. When I was in my early 20s, I would say that there was a lot of desperation. No, I'd say my later 20s, there's a lot of desperation like in my love life. I always wanted to, I wanted a partner. I wanted to be invited to that party where partnership was happening. I wanted to know what it was like to build my life, not necessarily build my life with somebody, but I just wanted to have flirting partners and all of that. And I felt like everybody around me had something that I didn't have, or was experiencing something that I couldn't. And then of course the world proved me wrong. And I learned that was, just a story and just how I was living and how I was experiencing my life. Uh, and as I got older, I had to sort of like confront like that version of me. Okay. There was a time when that particular, I don't regret any version of me, but there was that particular time in my life. And that version of me is not one. It took a lot of work to move away from that. And it's not a version of me that I want to return to. And at this point I couldn't return to very easily. And when I really was doing that work to sort of like evolve in the way I wanted to, there was a part of me that when I truly let go and came to realize like, oh, I'm a different woman now. Like I'm a grounded woman, I'm talking about years ago. This is years ago now. Now I'm 38. I'm talking about like 7, 8, 9 years ago. when that evolution happened and I could tangibly feel it and see how my behaviors, my thoughts, and the world around me was now reflecting this new person that I was, this shift, this like I it was like I was becoming like a new material, like also more aligned with my spirit. um I I went through a process of grieving, even though that version of me was a version I was happy to leave behind, even though that version of me I was knew was detrimental for me, that version of me was just causing desperation and pain in my life. Even though I was moving on to something better, more grounded, more open, more my crown set more straight on top of my head, like I was going into a better place, exciting place, a more hopeful place. I still was grieving for this old version of myself, and I it took me a while to name it. It took me a while to name that hurt. It took me a while to figure out why. It was because it was something that I was, and it was something that I was familiar with, and now it wasn't who I was anymore. It didn't matter whether or not it was a good thing for me to be that or a bad thing for me to be that. It did The good and bad didn't matter. It was just that it was something that I was. And so this is an unnamed feeling that a lot of us are feeling right now. Of course, we wanted a guilty, guilty, guilty verdict, right? Of course, we wanted that. Naturally, many people feel hopeful. Naturally, many people feel excited, right? And want to celebrate. That's not where I am, but that's natural for a lot of people. And yet, there's this looming experience of sadness and longing, and grief comes out in many ways. Those are just like some of the common things. Um, but it's important to remember that maybe that is something that you're feeling, and it can be confusing because, of course, if you want a guilty, guilty, guilty verdict, and then all of a sudden it's like sadness and longing, it's like, where is that coming from? And another thing we know about grief, you may or may not know about grief, is like it can show up like it's like a surprising thing. There's not always a pattern, a detectable pattern with grief. So sometimes it's clear. It's like every time you see this romantic movie, or or every time you see some sort of trauma or whatever, the grief comes. But a lot of times grief just kind of like whoop, pops up when you're having a good time. And so I want us to be aware, maybe for ourselves or other people, that grief is something that's on high right now. And somebody else might be feeling it. You might be feeling it. Does this make sense? I know I have people in the room. Is this making sense for everyone? even though even though we're getting what we want, even though this case could signify change, could be a giant step, or maybe even a small, significant, solid step for what we want to see in this world. um, we still can be grieving for what we once were. Even during these times, the times of the plague, people are grieving for what life was like before. But ultimately, as a culture, what things were before was not necessarily great, but it was something that we were. And so as we move away, this guilty, guilty verdict, as we move away from what we were, we are losing something that we are attached to. Some evolution is happening, and this particular evolution, this case, uh, could represent uh, could represent a giant leap, even if we don't see it all right in front of us right now. And so grief is something that is totally true and valid, that you might be feeling, that you might not be able to name. And so I want you to go out. We could talk forever about grief, but go out, look up some stuff about grief, and what it means, and the different symptoms of grief is different for everybody, and find out if that's what you're feeling, and name it. There's a lot of power in naming something that you're feeling. It really helps you understand the anatomy of the energy around you and what's going on inside you, and why. You get to know yourself a little bit better when you name things that you're experiencing. So anyway, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to give you that. I hope that was helpful. I wanted to give you that sort of open that door for you. I also pinned a video. I talked about two of the most important things to do right now after this guilty verdict. I pinned that in the comments of uh, this post of this video. And the last thing is tomorrow is one of my monthly webinars. I do by donation monthly webinars. They're called the New World Creations webinars. Tomorrow is allyship for busy people. Walk the talk. Be effective. I always hold, for those of you who don't know, I teach anti-racism from a spiritual perspective, meaning from within. I don't mean a religious thing. I just mean teaching from within. I hold spaces that are empowering and healing. I do not use guilting and shaming. They do not work. They set us back, those tactics. And tomorrow is going to be an awesome, juicy place. And I work with anybody who's ready to learn. It doesn't matter if you've been a freedom fighter for 30 years or if you are just now unplugging. It is not too late to brush up on allyship and what it means to you, and learning a way that you can do it that fits into the flow of your life and is aligned with your self-interest. Okay. Um, and yeah, so that's all I wanted to say. I hope you all join me tomorrow. Again, all of that is linked up. Somebody saying yes, 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 yes. Thank you for being here. You're awesome. You're lovely. Share away. Always, you can share anything from my page, and go out and name those wounds. You know, like, get to know yourself. Use these opportunities of heightened of heightened events to find out who you really are. Okay. And honestly, I'll say this last thing. That is the most important thing when it comes to creating the new world. Anti-racism work, uh, uh, racial equity work, sensitivity work, finding out who you are. Doesn't matter find out who you are, what's in your blood, who you really are, your identity. Okay. That's it. I love you all. I'm Alexandra Loves. I will see you all very soon. Bye bye.